Jorge. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emanuele Scalcione. At the first, thank you, Jorge, for invited to a workshop for your support in RUC APS project. This presentation has made two hands, mine and Arturo Caponero, my colleagues and friends. And I apologize for my English, for I hope improve. Then, we work in Basilicata, in Alsia, in Basilicata region. Alsia is Agency of Agriculture of Basilicata. Is a public agency to apply the policy of government of Basilicata region. Basilicata region is in southern Italy. The extension area is about 10,000 kilometers square, and the surface is high variability because there is an area, this Metapontino. This is Metapontino area where the agriculture is very important, and there are many inputs energy. Ok, questo non si toglie. Ok, Alsia have main location. We work in Metaponto, where is Alsia Research Center, Agrobios, an experimental farm where we work Pantanello, and there are some extension service, because the main of Alsia is to extension service to farmer. And another facilities present in Metaponto are CNR, University of Basilicata, CREA, Department of Agriculture Basilicata region, and Center of Agroarchaeology. The mission of Alsia. The mission of Alsia is to apply the agricultural development policy of Basilicata region, and the main activities are research and dissemination in agriculture and in agri-industry. Then validation and dissemination to transfer the innovation to farmers, and some extension service to farmer, where we work, I and Arturo. Another activities are promotion of local products and crop biodiversity conservation. Extension service, the main extension service. The regional agrometeorological service, my specialization, and other services and DSS for use efficiency of water in agriculture, and other activity are EPM with Arturo and other people. The situation is this: the impact of climate change in agriculture is high, and generates a new uncertainty about use of water and pest management. The general context in Europe and in the world the IPCC declared of human activity on the climate change, on global warming, with increase CO2 in atmosphere and increase the temperature especially in the last 15 years. In Italy, the context. The increase, the temperature is increased, especially in last 15 years. The increase, the major increase occurred in last 15 years, about 1.4 degrees Celsius. And other context is the rainfall reduction about of 5%, with the increase drought and extreme events. In Basilicata, about two recently worked, the situation is this. About the temperature increase of especially in Timin, and Tmax is lower, and the increase of about 1.1 in this period 1951 to 2010. The increase of Timin is greater in wind, spring and summer, and about Tmax, Tmax, the increase is lower, is estimated in 0.008 Celsius degrees. About precipitation, this work estimated in high variability and in extreme events over the last 16 years. The data, the annual data, generally in degrees, but there are some variability in some periods. But another important question is the variability in season, with degrees in autumn and winter, and increase in spring and summer. Then the summary is the degrees, the quotation is the degrees, the annual rainfall, and increase the torrential rains. But increase of temperature, especially in last 15 years. And another important aspect is increase the fresh day in summer and hot days in summer, and increase the extreme events. Another aspect, important aspect, is this, because about our work, we estimated the advancement of ripening agriculture products in about 3 days for apricot and peach. Another important situation for your attention, and we work, is the current law and the regulation in Europe. In Europe, policy, there are two main goals. The first is the protection of Earth's people and environmental sustainability. Then each countries in Europe must elaborate a plan, and each region has elaborated a plan. In Basilicata, PSR, Piano di Sviluppo Rurale. This plane has seen 6 priorities. In this plane, in many parts, talk about environmental sustainability, risk management, correct use of water, use efficiency of primary research and climate and other aspects of global warming. Another important law is the Directive 128, Directive of Europe Community, for sustainable use of pesticide, and applied to directive in Italy. The Italian law at the region level shall provide farmers with tools based on information and agrometeorological support about rational use of water and reduce of energy input in agriculture, and use of output of forecasting models, again biotic and abiotic advices. This is agrometeorological station network, my principal activity. These are we have 14 points monitoring, and we measure the temperature and temperature, air and soil, air moisture, wind, and other parameters, agrometeorological parameters. We see the high concentration in this area because it's Metapontino area, because the agriculture is very important, and there are many input energy, and in this area where the agriculture is important, but there are many lower input energy, we have lower number station. And our activity, we was born about 2000, and we storage this data for use to management and service for farmer, especially irrigation, pest management, and for other activity about bulletin agrometeorologica weekly, support and in research and experimental activity of a university and other center of research, for study to climate change at the level local, for measure the extreme events and other activity. We need and further development. For this project, we have in program to obtain a map of spatialization data to monitoring the irrigation system and EPM for farmer. With thanks for your interesting to Cyril, and other application. We are the climate cartography for precision farming is another activity, and study of effect of global change in on Mediterranean crop. This is a DSS with use about water use efficiency. This is the owner of this DSS is Minister of Agriculture, and we every day send the agrometeorological data, and is free for user, but necessarily registered on the website. Is used in many regions in Italy, the green area, and this is after some input. This is very easy because after some input about crop, the phenological phase starting of initial of beginning calculation, the output is the data and the volume of irrigation. This information is very easy and for farmer, and generation and this picture. In this picture, we are the rain and the irrigation, and is very important this line because is indicated the level of humidity in soil, and it tell us, indicated the data of irrigation. About this DSS objective to improve this DSS with new crops, and about KC, this coefficient, this is variability about the phenological phase and area we used. But we improve this DSS and study the irrigation for new crop and new crops and new varieties, and to dissemination to the results about information system. Now is change Arturo.
Okay, good morning. I will proceed about my matter. So integrated pest management. Basically, I manage a group in Alsia who apply and give services on integrated pest management. Sorry for the mistake. Just to focus, I'm sorry for biologists, what IPM, integrated pest management, is, because is not a practice, but is a concept, and is a way to manage this matter, the pest control, and in general plants health. So a good definition take place by FAO several years ago, just to understand what integrated pest management is. Even because from only some last years ago, in all the European countries, this concept became mandatory. So the law say what is integrated pest management. You can read better than can I read for you. Basically, we need to use all we can have before to use chemicals. This is the concept. But there are even two other important aspects to be considered. So we have to apply integrated pest management to preserve the environment, to reduce pollution, but it's important that this practice could be economically sustainable. We work for farmers, but we have to remember always that the farmer is an economically activity. So farmers can survive. Our services, summarizing, are pest and pathogen identification. We are a public agency, so basically farmers doesn't pay some services or pay a little amount of cost for these services. Pest monitoring, we have a network in our region to monitoring for the principal crops, the most important, the key pathogens. Pest forecasting model, this is an interesting field that is increasing, even because for in some way is almost mandatory in Europe to apply. We give technical assistance, stewardship, what we can say dissemination. Basically, we are between farmers and experimentation, research to apply for farmers in our region. Obviously, we make directly or we participate to experimentation for new techniques and even new products. This is our service, and in 215 Basilicata region give us a goal to implement this very important directive that basically established a network, a framework for sustainable use of pesticide to minimize two keywords: risk and environment and human health. This is just a picture to understand that this directive came from the sixth environmental action plan. 4 priorities, one of these, one of the most important, environment and health. 7 thematic strategy, 1 strategy only dedicated to the sustainable use of pesticides. So, for people like me, for plant pathologists, for agronomists on field, this directive is really a milestone because from at least on law, from 2044, integrated pest management become mandatory. So all farm in all United States of community must apply integrated pest management. And a basis of integrated pest management is to know what happened in your field, obviously, but even in the environment, in your area. It's not possible for farmers to know what happened in other, even near. There are 2 possibilities: cooperation or provide services by public services. This is our case, but is almost the same, I think, in all the European countries, because there are some services that are really expensive. For example, to manage a network for agrometeorological registration data. So, about climate change. Does climate change impact on IPM? Obviously, yes. Impact on agriculture, and the IPM is just a little piece of a puzzle for agriculture, integrated agriculture management. I'm sorry again for biologists. It's a very naive picture to explain the more complicated relationship between plants, pathogens in the environment, but is historical. As you can see, plants and pathogens are a cross interaction, but they depend on environment. And climate is an important factor for plants of environment. We can move if our environment is not good, plants can't. So we know that at global scale, climate is changing. We know that at the national or Mediterranean scale is changing. I'm not an expert, but have read that on Mediterranean Sea, what will happen in the ocean is already happened, is more quickly, because it's small, the Mediterranean, but it's not my matter. What we know that our most important area in Basilicata region is a alluvional plain near the sea. It used to be a swamp, so some crops are cultivated -1, -3 meters on the sea level. It's not my matter, but it's very important to know what happens if the sea in Mediterranean area will increase of half meters or 40 centimeters for the hydrology, etc. So we have some questions, but we don't have an answer, and maybe we have not so many time to have this answer. Some of them, will the life cycle of pathogens pests change? We think yes. The aggressiveness of the same pest will change. Maybe new pests will arrive or will find a new condition to establish in our region, coming from commercialization and so on. Will phenology of crops modified? And what we have changed in managing the way to spray pesticides or the way to put pesticides. Mycotoxin will increase if for some crops, grape and wine, or corn or wheat, etc., important crops. So there is a lot of work for your analysis. In our plane, what we suppose will probably happen in our area. Summarizing what is happened even in Basilicata, but in many Mediterranean region, is what the climatology say tropicalization. So we expect that in next year, but just in this year, we expect more extreme events, and we expect higher temperature of the sea. That means even more humidity in the air. So our beautiful seaside with a blue sky is changing, and some cultivation that we are able to cultivate with a real amount of pesticide maybe will change the way to manage, and some pests, some pathogen, for example, fungi and bacteria, will increase their aggressiveness. So plant pathologies for IPM, but in general, agronomists need to, just now, need to change strategy, and they need new tools. Some tools are already useful, and some other must be developed. So ICT is a good field. We need system support, decision system support. Sensors are even less expensive, so maybe we can transfer in agriculture some sensor used for car industry, for example, like the sensor when you have to park, and so on. So, just to remember, the WWF says agriculture is a victim of climate change, but is even a cause. I have a slide of Professor Mortimer, maybe show 25% of climate change came from agriculture. So this is a worst practice in our region, for example. Burn the residues of crops to replace quick. Fire, desertification, pollution, deforestation, etc. So climate change impact pest management, agriculture impact climate change, and for his small part, pest management impact climate change. This is the reason for which in the last year the approach, the concept of integrated pest management is changed. This is a representation of the whole concept, and now often people talk about not integrated pest management, but climate smart pest management. Is a bit more complicated, this scheme, but the keywords are interdisciplinary, not multidisciplinary, but interdisciplinary approach to improve, to increase resilience against pathogens, but even to mitigate greenhouse gases, and to contribute to food security. So, to apply this new concept, it's important that farmer has new weapon, new information, but there are many actors in this chain, circular chain, as research obviously, but even politicians, public opinion, etc. It's much complicated. In RUC APS, our task in general is provide service to farms, to our farms, and improve even number of services and quality of services. This is the reason for which we are working we are involved in RUC APS project. We are the work packages number 6, and we open in our secondment to have a good spatialization of our 40 station data in order to use this data to build virtual station and used for forecasting pest models, and even to better use water for irrigation. Thank you for the attention, and sorry, useful. We are used to talk with farmers, so we need to use our native language, and very often dialect or slang, not English. Sorry.
Is there any question for Arturo?
You mentioned about new pests and diseases. Are you detecting any changes that might be driven by climate or by other factors? Are you getting reports from farmers?
There are. It's a nice. It's a nice something, because in Italy, that is a long peninsula, in plant pathologist fields, we understand something was changing before that climatologists say is changing, because the first signal was a more aggressiveness of some fungi, and we have in the north of Italy a very large plain, and we cultivate some similar crops, for example peach, even in the south. But in the south, we are better conditioned in sun, in climate, so we are less problem for some fungi, for example. We start to have problem with some fungi. For insects, there is the Mediterranean fly. It's called Mediterranean because it's typical of the coast of the Mediterranean. And Mediterranean flies start to give problem in the north of Italy, where it never happened, this thing. So climate is, I think, surely an important point of this change. There are even other transportation. Fruit, fresh fruit, different fruit transportation, not only in the normal way. People come from China or the north of Africa, take food, for example. So just in the last 2 or 3 years, we imported, we don't know now, but we imported, sorry, we don't know how, 2 very important insects that can create a lot of damage. And when in our network to monitoring the eventual presence, we starting to capture these insects where some community were concentrated, some community coming from Cameroon, for example. So there are many aspects to be considered.
Yeah, so can you update us on Xylella fastidiosa? I know the answer already, but it's a worrying problem, and I think we discussed that already.
Yeah.
Just update the audience with that particular pathogen.
Yeah, Xylella fastidiosa is a pathogenic bacteria, phytopathogenic bacteria. The species is in list number 1 in Europe. Is mandatory the quarantine strategy, so was not present in Europe. This species, Xylella is the genus, and fastidiosa is the species. Actually, is split in different subspecies with different virulence pattern. What happened in the south of Italy, in Puglia, was most probably that some coffee plants that we use in garden, not for cultivation, came from Rotterdam and from Costa Rica. Costa Rica has not olive. And maybe some plants of coffee was affected by Xylella fastidiosa, a special strain of subspecies. And Xylella fastidiosa was able to found an insect vector in our land, very efficiency in infect olive. And the reaction of olive tree is really very quick in the development of disease. So what is happened is that the historical landscape in Apulia is changing, and there are plants 300 or 200 old that are dying or are died. It's really difficult to stop this disease, this pathogen, because so many plants can incubate, are affected, and the vector is really efficient in movement, is everywhere. We found this specific insect at sea level, but even in our highest mountain, 2,000 meters, almost in different seasons, obviously. So we are really worried for our olive orchards because it's a typical production, and it's not only the problem, an economical problem, but even of landscape.
The religious deal not in Basilicata, is just in Apulia, but it might cross soon, you think?
Very close, 400 kilometers, and what we know is that roughly is able to move 20 kilometers each year. So we can maybe, sorry. No, maybe we never found, we are really pay attention, there are network, but it's not easy to understand, to fight. Even because could be, there are so many tourism, and you just can carry by your car the insect.
Just one last question.
Yeah, I was wondering, so you said about a bunch of problems and some new insects and diseases coming. Do you know that there's many countermeasures that you can take in place and you're just not sure which to choose, or do you have to develop completely new techniques to deal with these issues?
Thanks for the question. It's not easy to. I'll try. No, it's nice because I am basically I am a field technician. I apply integrated pest management. I apply we call the second level of integrated pest management because my interaction is with a technician of farmer organization. So the problem is that we have not or a really small part modelized an approach to apply this technical way to manage. This is the real problem. Just an example. We discussed with some of you about this. It's mandatory that in each region, in all the Europe, government must provide a network to monitoring some pests. It's mandatory, but in which way? We have no any information. For example, if I have 1,000 hectares in 10,000 hectares of some specific crops, how many hectares I have to monitor, and which pathogen. There is not information. And so we use, I don't know if my work as technician is good. I just manage what, it's really subjective, not objective. And it's difficult to build. I think a lot of work should be in this direction, and in plant pathologists coming to try to give answer to these questions.
Yeah.
But there is so many work. I know it's really complicated, but must have some guidelines, for example.
Yeah, I'm sure other people across the world have dealt with pests and diseases that you might be experiencing that are new. It's just the change of climate. Somewhere else in the world has the same climate for those to the one that you're experiencing now. Yeah.
Lot of work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ah.
You put here in some place. And you put it in some place.
And which? And click.
Probably the other side.
Oh yes, I've got it.
Yeah.
I usually.
Yeah, then you put here, or here, whatever. This one or that one.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I hope I don't shout. I usually present wearing Wellingtons in a field, so let's see how it goes. I'm Deborah Crossan. I work for Innovation for Agriculture, and I work on the soils team. We are part of the Royal Agricultural Society of England. So in 1840, they started to have agricultural meetings, and that became the Royal Agricultural Show, which has demised those people that know of it. And for various reasons it demised, because of climate change. We had some very wet years and it put people off. We had foot and mouth, so we lost the stock classes. And also farmers changed the way that they were purchasing and the ways that they were getting information. So our CEO, David Gardner, got together with 15 of the regional agricultural societies and then decided to put in place Innovation for Agriculture, which wanted to take the motto practice with science and sit between the space similar to your organisation, where we speak to research and we speak practical farming to farmers, and hope that we can form some sort of a bridge and an interaction of information between the two. So these are our core work streams, and I work in the soil and water team. We also have an agricultural team looking at precision and also antibiotic resistance. And that can work in quite, in ways that aren't always that scientific. For example, with peer-to-peer learning, we've got some farmers who are putting a lot less pressure on their dairy cattle and not even milk recording anymore, and just planting species in the fields such as willow, which the cattle will go and access if they've got a headache. So some farmers are getting to the point where they're not using antibiotics because the pressure's not there on the stock and they don't have so much mastitis, and they're, just accepting lower yields and a more simple farming practice. We work with precision agriculture as well. So if you ever get the chance to listen to companies such as the Small Robot Company, they've got a fascinating talk as well about how robots are actually working on the land and how they see that going forwards. So that's some of what we do. Yeah, just what we set out to do was work with researchers and businesses and farmers to do what we're all trying to do, and that is make farming more resilient and more sustainable. We do that by going out, having practical workshops with farmers on farm demonstrations, and trying to identify farmers who are making real progress and encourage them to speak to other farmers. So that message goes across. We partnership work with organisations. This is some work that we did with catchment sensitive farming, which was very much trying to make sure that we make the soils more resilient so they do stay on the land and don't head off down the road, which they do. And some examples of when things have gone badly wrong due to lack of organic matter, lack of channels down into the earth, so the water's just running straight off the top. And these are just some of the disasters that we see. We've produced some soil health videos which are on our website. They're actually a bit long, as we've learned, but they are available, and we did that in partnership with catchment sensitive farming, just to try and give farmers the opportunity to see what other people are doing, especially the conservation agriculture, which has shown about 6 farmers who are making real changes with their farming practices, no-till farming, and making real changes with cover crops and improving their soil resilience. Some of the other projects that we get involved in, this is an AgriCycle project, and we went out to China at the end of last year with quite a large contingent of other people on the project. I organised quite a few study tours. This is me looking very cold here, and take farmers to travel around and look at other farms and innovation that's going on farming businesses. We go and present at and give workshops on antibiotic reduction. This is the AgriCycle dissemination. We dig a lot of soil pits, and we try to go to most of the summer agricultural shows. We run the soil and water programme, which is going out, speaking to farmers, digging holes, running farm walks. It's given up. And just these are the videos that I was on about, which are available on the website if you wanted to have a look at those. I won't play them now. One other thing that we discovered, there's a lot of information about soil testing to farmers, but on a daily basis on the farm, trying to help farmers make a decision about where they would spend the money in the lab and what things they could do on the farm to try and find out more about their own soil. So with a bit of funding from JC Mann, we put in a decision support tool, which is a small interactive mini website on our website, taking the 3 elements of soil, and most of our talks concentrate on these 3 elements of soil when we're speaking to farmers in soils workshops. Anyway, there's just a couple of slides showing what people find when they go onto that, and it's really to explain what they're trying to find out and show them ways that they can on-farm tests, so they don't necessarily have to pay a lot of money to find out the things about their soil, but they can go and dig a pit, do simple tests at home in the kitchen. Some of the physical things to look out for in the soil, from compaction, bulk density, a bit about why the structure of the soil is so important. And we've also put all the labs on there and the trials and tests that they will do so that they can find out where to get those things done. A bit more about the biology. This didn't work yesterday, so I was a bit disappointed with it. We've tried to take out some simple tests into our soils workshops. So getting farmers to bring some soil in, sieve out some of the soil life and use microscopes and things that they don't often do, or go and do earthworm counts, for example, which are a really good way of indicating how much life you've got in the soil with a really quite a large visual creature that you can spread them out, count them out. If you've got 25 earthworms per shovel of soil, it gives you a very strong indication that you've got really healthy soil life and increasing organic matter. Go out and do visual assessments of the soil, and these are done by the Scottish colleges, so people can dig a soil pit and assess their soil quite simply at home. Slate tests, I don't know if anyone's heard of those. They're quite a nice way of setting up in a workshop, getting 3 different types of soil and putting them into just mayonnaise jars. And as you speak, you can watch some of the soil completely slump. That's not held together well with organic matter. And if you put, say, in a cover crop soil that's been well maintained, it will sit there and keep the water looking clear as you continue to speak. So some of those things, just to give a very strong visual idea of what's going on in the soil, quite useful to us, quite a useful tool. And this is just, this slide often shows farmers how much phosphate there actually is in the soil and how much is accessible because it's locked up, and they need to increase their soil biology to enable them to access a lot of the phosphate that is actually available rather than to keep adding it. Another simple test on the farm is to these little indicators of what's planted, drill holes in them and put oatmeal in them. Plant them in the soil, and depending on how much soil life you've got, those will be eaten away and how quickly they're taken. So simple tests that we try and show people that they can carry out themselves. The tea bag test through Reading University, this is just to give you an idea of how some of your research then converts onto simple farm tests and people can gain information for themselves. So Reading will send you some tea bags out and plant them in the soil. You pre-weigh them and then you dig them back up and weigh them again, giving you an indication of how much has been eaten by the soil life. Soil pants. That if you buy cotton underwear from Marks and Spencer's and bury it in the area that you want to test. And then, depending on how much biology you've got going on, we'll end up with either full-size pants or a G-string, depending on how much of it's been eaten. Digging a soil pit can also tell you a lot about what's going on. This is another project that we worked on, bringing us back to the circular economy. And AgroCycle was a project which is just finished, looking at the valorization of waste products, just to make sure that we are really not trying to grow more, but to really make use of everything that we've got, to prevent the waste and use everything from field right to the other end, and producing fuels and soil amendments from the byproducts of crops. So IFA's role in this is usually, this was just taking sugar beet from the field all through to its final destination out the other end, and all the byproducts and different services that you can get from it. And IFA's role was still very much at quite a practical level. So we produced questionnaires that would ask all of those questions to farmers about, it's all very well coming up with an idea about how something can be used, but actually in a practical way, are farmers going to do it and are they able to do it? And we looked at the barriers that were preventing some of these happening. So waste management licenses, the minute anything leaves a farm, it becomes a waste product, whatever it is. And a lot of farmers weren't familiar with accessing waste management licenses. So that was one barrier that we came up with. the logistics of transport and storage, because you're moving a very low value product, and a lot of the time you're moving and shifting water at £1 per mile in the lorry load. How sensible is it to be moving manure or a wet product? Seasonality of products. If you get planning permission, for example, for one type of product, and that's only available for 6 weeks of a year, apple, pumice, you know, or if you've the planning issues for bringing different mucks through a village, all of these can affect whether people will have a viable business once they've invested in it. Some of the others, the variability of products, feedstock variability for your output, the other end of the AD plant, climatic influences, and if those crops are going to change in the future, how localized they can be, again, how much you can move them around. And one of really the easiest way that we came up with using some of these very cheap products is making sure that there was a simple system on the farm to just keep the circular economy within the farm, and it was by far the best way. Another piece of work we did in this project was to fund PhD students at Harper Adams who did some specific work. So if you can find an interesting project and get involved with some of the practical organisations, we are keen to get research done. And it's excellent if you work with us and come and do research for us. It's also, you know, a very useful application, and it has a practical end result because the farmers do want to know if there's been an effect from using certain soil amendments, which this particular project was about, linking in with the AgriCycle project. There's definitely a real space to come and work with the practical organisations there, and this was just another bit of research that was done at the same time with the AgriCycle and Harper Adams and ourselves, which we've then disseminated across all of our workshops to farmers over the previous winter. So that's us. Please feel free to interact with us or tweet about us, and if you've got any questions, I'd be really happy to answer them. Scot-free.
Right.
Thank you.
You can have
This.
Thanks. Yes. Right, so we just reached the final part of the session. I fully appreciate all the time that you spent here. As you saw, agriculture now can be seen from different angles, different point of views, and I think that it's a room for everybody in order to do something, right? Why is this? Because at some point we need to provide ourselves with a sustainable environment that will help us to maintain the humanity, you know, for a very long term. And it seems that there are some issues, right, in the environment that we cannot control very well, neither understand very well. So that's why I think that the combination between academia and industry partners now is more important than ever. Of course, we need to unlock the right path in order to make sure that it's a win-win relationship from every single point of view. Before finalizing this, just I would like to make sure that all of you, let me see this, all of you access this link and you put your keywords of what you learn. So have you, all of you, access this link, menti.com, and put your keywords? Because I really want to see what was the outcome of this, so it's going to be very interesting. So if anybody hasn't?
How long is it open for, Morgan?
Till, you know, forever. But but the thing is that the idea is that when you put, you will see it, because when you put your keyword, we will see now if there were any pattern in terms of the opinions. Actually, I'm going to show you that right now, how this looks like, if I can. Let me see. Let's use that one. So, hold on. So this is going to be there.
Just out of curiosity, can you put phrases in there?
Yeah.
Or is it just one word at a time?
Well, the idea is try to put a keyword, because if you put a phrase, right, it's going to look too big. So that's why we use keywords in order to see if we find any patterns between keywords. So, you know, so. Here you go. So we'll see what happens. So what's this one? Right, so this is a tool that I normally use with my students when I teach, because it's nice to see, for instance, how the audience can capture some keywords and eventually try to see if there is any patterns in their understanding. So what this tool does, which is very interesting, if there is any common word that 2 or more people use, you see that also can be updated, you know, on in a real time. The word will look bigger. So we see that after all this session, the word climate, right, is the one that, or climate change, no, you can change it, of course. The word climate really is the one that is in your brain right now, right? Probably climate change for sustainability as well, where all the other that are smaller, as you can see, are probably, you know, quite far away of what you think that are relevant. So, which makes total sense, because today we try to discuss about those sources of uncertainty that drive inefficiencies, that drive waste in this agriculture value chain. So I think that based on this sessions has been successful, right? Because you capture the concept. You capture that there is I call it a small issue, a very tiny issue, with climate that is driven really almost all the things that you know, we want to do. Of course, that you also consider other words like management, innovation, uncertainty, pest, right? Green circular economy, and then this can be updated all the time. Coconuts, yes. So with this, I really would like to thank you, your attendance to this session. I fully appreciate your effort in being here. As I said, the idea is try to open the door for those ones that are keen to get involved in the RUC APS project, especially to implement those internships. If you need to know more details, feel free to contact me. We have till the 3rd of October next year for doing this. So if anybody is interested, you see that eventually is a potential case study that you may add to your current work, you're more than welcome to join. It's not only about, as I said, agronomy. So we have economy, engineering, modeling, optimization, a lot of angles as you can see, right? So once again, fully appreciate it, and hope to see you soon again.